MrPhilFox, Jeff Kran of Zion's Banner. This is Drops of Hope Ministry coming at you. Hey there, friends and family. Good to see each and every one of you. This is MrPhilFox of Drops of Hope Ministries. I am live with Mr. Jeff Kran of Banner of Hope.
Zion's Banner.
Zion's Banner. I'm sorry. trying to mix my name. Well, I guess today we are Banner of Hope, right? Drops of Hope and Zion's Banner. There you go. So Jeff, we're going to be tackling kind of a very, and I apologize, I got my dog in the background, so and I got my daughters with some friends over, so yeah, this is very, very live from our very, very household, so so please excuse any of the background noise, but yeah, we're going to be looking at a very important topic, and I brought Jeff in to sort of do some of the heavy lifting, because we're going to look at at Christ in the Old Testament. And Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what makes you such an expert?
Wow, what is an expert? Anybody who's 5 miles away from home or something? That's what I once heard. I guess the expertise stems out of training along a real heart passion, which really is connected to who I am and how God brought me to himself, which is seeing the connections between Old and New Testament. And that functions in terms of an apologetic, because I think the big picture shows a big story that gives a big worldview. And then also in terms of teaching. So it's just that kind of drives me. And it's driven me in two directions. It's driven me in the direction of apologetics. We could say to defend, and then teaching, to mend. So, and I borrowed that from an old show called Reboot, but I just loved it.
That's awesome. So before we sort of give our shout outs here in the live chat with all the folks that are on watching in, so there's a certain cultural background that you come from, Jeff, that might give you a little added insight probably to this, or at least helps give us a little different perspective as to where we could find Christ in the Old Testament. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your
Yeah, I mean, and I should have kind of thought to do that. I almost want to say, some people say, are you of Jewish extraction? And I don't feel like I've been extracted. I still feel about the same shape I was before. But I grew up in a Jewish household with an Orthodox Jewish grandfather on my mother's side, and a very secular Jewish father, and more secularized Jewish parents on my dad's side. So with my grandfather, I went to synagogue. I got a Hebrew education. I'm almost thinking that'd be a great soundtrack, because I'm thinking of like vocab hitting the button. And so given that background, I had a kind of a passion, a real interest in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but I wasn't approaching that from a Christian or New Testament vantage point at all. I mean, our Bible stopped at 2nd Chronicles, which is where the Hebrew order stops. And so I had Hebrew school, I had Hebrew background, I became interested in practicing things. I went to Orthodox Jewish summer camp. And so really for me, it was almost the opposite. It was the New Testament that was strange and weird, and the church that was strange and weird. And the Old Testament, we didn't learn it like scholarly, but I mean, the stories and stuff, the only stories I knew, the only holidays I knew were from the Old Testament.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So I am looking forward to, and I even shared this with Nate 2D2 Him and I were having a sidebar conversation, and I told him, I said, look, most of my understanding, and I shared a little bit with you prior to the show starting. Eliza J, thank you, sister, for the super sticker. Appreciate you, sister. Thank you for supporting this ministry. It's gonna help further this ministry and further the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So thank you so much, sister. But yeah, I was telling Nate, I hope I get corrected by Jeff, because I have a very Christianized, of course, we have this American lens to our Christianity, and so I was very excited, with your background and with your experience, that maybe you can help course correct me a little bit. So I'm hoping that happens today. If it doesn't, then that would be even better. But I would love for my course to get corrected by Jeff himself. But yeah, so of course we got to do a little bit of shout outs here. Nate 2D2, of course, in the chat. He's a moderator, and then the queen of moderators, my sister Dinu. It's never a bad day when I get to see my sis Dinu. Blessings to you, sister. Steve, blessings to you. I've seen you around a few times. I think you're on primarily with Jeff and his stuff. So I think that's where I've seen you. So it's good. It's good to see you, brother. And one of many. Good to see you, brother. Glad you're out there. Good to see you. My brother Isaiah Braxton, holding it down. Blessings to you, brother. And of course, my bro, Servant of Christ Ministries. He's mowing the lawn and he's listening in. So, okay. And then who else do we have up in here? Liza J, of course, with the super sticker. Thank you. Blessings to you, sister. My man, BK Apologist. I'm going to actually be on his channel next week. We're going to talk about the contextualizing the gospel, and we're going to come at it from the Native American experience, and we're calling it the Sundance of Christ. And the Sundance is our cultural, one of our cultural religious practices of self-sacrifice. But we're going to look and see that Christ has already done that for us. So a little bit there. Liza J, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much, sister. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. And Nate is throwing up some links. Thank you, brother, for Jeff here. Also here, BK Apologist channel. Carm just entered the chat. So thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, so much. I know that there's some folks who are not only on the YouTube side, but they're also on the Facebook side. So thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. And so here we go. So Jeff, Christ in the Old Testament. I know that this conversation could literally go for, someone can have an entire ministry on this subject and never be without content. So we're going to try to tackle this in approximately 50 minutes. So I know that there are several places that we could go, and there's going to probably some crossover. So don't hate on us too much theologically if we bounce over to several different ideas and these types of things. So we're trying to do an overview, and that's my goal, is just to sort of whet everyone's appetite of where we can find Christ in the Old Testament. What are things that maybe wink at Christ in the Old Testament, and then things where we could physically see Christ, or things that just sort of reference to Christ. So are there places, Jeff, in the Old Testament that we can see Christ?
Oh yeah, and a distinction needs to be made between motif. Those are pictures. Think of your Bible as a giant play. There are things that are scene related, like you're watching a movie and same the same wallet appears in two scenes in the mystery, and then later on you connect that wallet was key to discovering who did it. And those are motif things. And then there are things that we consider more direct prophecy. So I want to distinguish between things that give us a characteristic of Messiah and things that picture Messiah. All right. And your New Testament writers made use of both of them. So if I'm thinking about things that give me some information about what Messiah is supposed to look like, we have what's called the pre-evangel, or the the proto-evangel, which is your Genesis 3:15. Now, the reason that's important is that's like the root, and then like the branches of the root come out from that prophecy. One of the things you need to understand is that, when you're looking at prophecy, it's sort of like a Polaroid lens. A Polaroid, the old Polaroid pictures, where you took the picture and you waited for it to develop. Well, that's the way Messianic prophecy works. And it's not this slam dunk thing where you just pull a prophecy out. It's like this developing picture, where you take it out of the camera and you see the picture develop, or like a jigsaw puzzle, where it makes sense when all the pieces are there. But if we begin with that, and I don't know as we go to verses whether you want to throw them up on the thing for everyone to see, or what the plan is, but Genesis 3:15 is probably your first hint, okay, your first puzzle piece in a sense, the very beginning of the Polaroid. Okay.
So let's go to Genesis 3:15.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, context is terribly important to this whole thing, because we're looking, in a sense, at the completed jigsaw puzzle. But when you're looking at what they understand, you have to understand that they're looking at the jigsaw piece.
Yeah.
So as we look at this jigsaw piece, just to put it in context, of course, we know that man fell, that sin entered into the human race. Man made a decision to figure out good and evil on his own. Really bad move. And so now this horrible thing is descended, and God's going to give hope. So he gives hope through a promise. And in this particular case, he's talking to the serpent, but he's not just talking to snakes. He's talking to the evil one behind the serpent. And that gets into all sorts of stuff. And, you wouldn't be afraid of talking snakes and that whole thing. And I'm not going to get into, the zoological animal ramifications here. But he tells the evil one that he's going to put enmity between you. And I want you to know that in the Hebrew, that's singular. Okay. And the woman, and between your seed and her seed. And the problem with seed is it can sometimes be collective and sometimes be singular. So then the question becomes, well, did Eve understand this as an individual, or did she understand this as all her offspring? Well, the clue to me is he shall bruise your head. And the he there is singular, third person male. And you shall bruise his heel. And what God is telling Eve right there is that I'm going to send a deliverer, because she can overhear this, essentially Satan, I'm going to send a deliverer that's going to crush what you did. I'm going to undo it. It's going to cost the deliverer something, but ultimately he will prevail. And I don't think God is pulling the snake aside. Now, I can't prove it. It doesn't say, and God walked away with the snake 50 yards, or and Adam and Eve were listening. But all of this seems to occur in the context of them being together. And so I think Eve is aware of this. Does this prove the virgin birth? No, we're not far enough along here. It gives two hints. One, there'll be a deliverer. And two, this deliverer will uniquely be the seed of the woman. Now, some Christians will jump and they'll say, aha, the virgin birth. And I'll say, Well, Eve doesn't have enough info for that yet. The picture needs to develop further. But what Eve does know is it's uniquely her seed. And the Bible doesn't speak of the seed of the woman. It speaks of the seed of the man generally. So this is one of those things where you say, well, something's different here about this deliverer. I'm not quite sure how it's uniquely the seed of the woman. Okay, I don't have all the information yet, but somehow this deliverer is going to be uniquely the seed of the woman, and he's going to overturn what the fall did. So it's a promise of future deliverance and a unique individual that's uniquely the seed of the woman. And that much Adam and Eve could know from this. That piece could be certain for them.
Excellent. So one of the I'd like to touch on one of the points that you made is well, what we like to do oftentimes when we're trying to, prove a point or try to, sort of build a case is we always try to, go and cite one verse. It's always this idea of, quick hitters and we can, we need to prove our point with just one verse, and really, this is the same way within, arguing for the Trinity, right? You sort of have to let it develop. You have to let this whole entire thing develop, because yes, the word Trinity is not in the Bible, but the concept is there. So the same thing with this, this idea of showing Christ throughout the Old Testament. We have to sort of build this case, if you will, just like you're saying, Jeff. So I really want people to understand that there is no just one verse or one thing that's the end all be all, if you will. So I really appreciate that point, Jeff, that, that we need to sort of build this conglomerate of these separate verses and let them thread all the way through as we progress. So, so the seed aspect. So is this sort of the quote foundation of where we see Christ in the Old Testament, and then build from here? Is this what you're saying?
I think it is like a major foundation, because you have to wonder, why do we need a deliverer? Why is this produce any sort of hope for Eve?
Mm-hmm.
They've lost like everything. I mean, think about this. They're going to be driven from the garden. Life's going to be miserably hard. She hasn't gotten all the ramifications of this, but she knows it's not good. I mean, they used to enjoy fellowship with God, and all of a sudden they're in this entirely different position. And so they know it's basically not good. And she's getting hope from this. She asks, what hope is God giving? And I think this is foundational. And I think that idea of the seed is going to become real important, because that's a motif. When you want to make an argument for the gospel or kind of explain who Jesus is Old Testament wise, use the motifs are real handy. So who's the seed? See, I mean, that's a question we can begin to ask ourselves.
Excellent. Now, just a couple of verses down, this is commonly, let's see, I'm making sure I'm in the right one. Verse 20. Now, is this another wink at Christ, or verse 21, excuse me? Where the Lord made Adam and Eve and wife the garments of skin and clothed them. Because I've heard this as well. This is a portrayal of God covering their sin, the sacrifice, and all this stuff. Can we make a case for that?
I think you can make a case that something had changed, and God had to provide a covering for them. I know that sometimes people will get into, because I don't know what the skin was made of. I don't know that it was a lamb. At this point, I don't have the clear image of the lamb. That's going to come in later. But what I do know is that their relationship with God changed, and it even was physically visible. And I can say that even the rabbis said that a man was originally covered with the glory of God, and then at the point of this, something was lost. And so God being the provider of the covering certainly is a good motif point to make.
Mm. Yeah.
In what way is God our provides a covering? Might be a good way to go with that.
Okay. Yeah, that's I'm all about it, man. Like I said, I'm all about the course correction, and that is a key thing, because as you progress throughout the Old Testament, we see the clearer picture of this idea of a lamb, a pure and spotless lamb, who's going to be the sacrifice. So that imagery is there. So so lesson, here's a lesson point is, we have to understand the information that we have in front of us, and we have to be able to look at the information, interpret it, understand it, but try not to read into it, because that's a solid point, because I've heard this used many times. Well, look, this is it. And yes, there is a relational change. And then there is the need for the covering. But again, we're missing another key element, is that is consistent throughout Scripture. So we have to be careful with these things when we're reading, any type of Scripture. And that's an important element for us to understand and know when we're reading things. Shout out to Sister Michelle. Blessings to you, sister. Thank you for showing up and helping support the ministry. I appreciate you, sister. So the next passage I had, or did you have any more to add to this, or any other direction you wanted to go, Jeff?
Not really. Understand that they drew these things through the story. And I think that's what you're hitting on, is that we have this piece of information, and yes, it does point to that in view of the entire story, but we've got to deal with just what we have and then follow it through the story, and I think that's what you're getting at.
Amen. Yeah. Yep. And that's, and that's why it's important for us, to read the Bible, to read the Scripture, get into the Word, because this thing it's utterly important for us to have this understanding. And I was sharing with Jeff even before we got on live, that I am New Testament heavy and I'm thin on Old Testament, and I'm not afraid to admit that, because need to be honest. So I have, the more I'm reading the Old Testament and the deeper I'm digging, the more it's coming alive, and also the more I'm understanding that and Jeff said it earlier, that the apostles, the New Testament writers, they would look at this imagery of Christ and him being magnified. And even Jesus himself was saying stuff like this, like, you would have known through the stories that I'm coming. And it's important for us to look at those things, so that way, we can truly have a well-rounded understanding when it comes to looking at Christ and the whole story, because it's going to not only just help us in our understanding, but it's going to help us in our apologetic approach. Because look at some of the implications already that we could apply. If Christ isn't just this New Testament figure, it means that Christ is older. So some of these ancient religions, and I know I face this a lot within the Native American community, that Christ is this, or Jesus is this white man's gospel, and he's basically a Johnny-come-lately. But no, I can look and say, look, he comes of this lineage, and he is pointed towards, even in the older texts, not just throughout the New Testament. So even just that in itself is also ammunition for when we're loading up our apologetics thing. So I'm sorry, Jeff. I have passion for this kind of stuff, but I do want it to, to be something where it's not just another learning thing where we just pack it into our brain and it just becomes another dot or another bullet point. I want it to be something that we can apply and take from. So I appreciate you bearing with me as I sort of get into preach mode.
No problem.
So the next thing, and if this is jumping too far, Jeff, or if there's something that that you want to get to, but my next point was getting to these angel of the Lord passages. In let's see, in 16. That's the first time we see this imagery of angel of the Lord.
I'm just going there.
Okay. So some of us might be familiar, maybe we're not so familiar, but this is when Sarai's her maiden Hagar basically runs away because Sarai can't bear children. So all of this crazy stuff happens, and swapping wives and all this kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden we get to where Hagar runs away, and then all of a sudden this thing shows up called the angel of the Lord. So I did not verse number my notes.
You're right around verse 7 of 16.
Yeah, so here we go. So the angel of the Lord found her, that's Hagar, by a spring in the water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Sur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going? And she said, I am fleeing from my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her. And the angel of the Lord also said to her, I will surely multiply your offspring. So it's kind of weird how this angel of the Lord person pops up, or this being, or this thing pops up, and it's angel of the Lord, and we see the word angel and we automatically think seraphim, cherubim in our mind's eye, right? So Jeff, who is this person? What is this person?
This is absolutely incredible. I loved it when I found this, being so non-Trinitarian. This was the sort of stuff that jumped out at me. This is deity. Now the writer here really says some things that indicate it. The phrase "where have you come from" is almost reminiscent of Genesis, where God says to Adam, where are you? Where have you come from? And it's sort of this self-reflecting question of like, why don't you tell me what you've been up to? When your dad comes to you and says, so what have you been doing?
Gives you the opportunity, right?
Yeah, he gives you he already heard the basketball. He knew it hit the wall of your bedroom, and he says, so, what are you doing up there? And this is like self-confession time. And she gets straight. What you need to understand is also the last time you have, I will make you a great nation, or I will make your seed great. That is actually connected to Abraham's promise. I will multiply your descendants exceedingly. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing a little bit of indirect evidence that the angel of the Lord's deity. There's direct evidence and indirect evidence. So the author, the penman here, is using both types of tools to bring home who the angel of the Lord is in a real sense. And this angel of the Lord is one of the ways that God manifests himself and enters into his creation. So now you're in 16 of Genesis, and God is entering into his creation as this angel of the Lord person. And, there are other hints there. They're the explicit hints where he's, this gets clearer as you go on. But in 13, now understand, in the ancient world, you called things names because that was their essence. See, when we as, Americans call something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the essence of something. Names are very important in Mideastern culture. Okay. I could get into it. I have a whole message on Jacob. What is your name? The angel's wrestling with Jacob. What is your name? He's not asking Jacob what his name is, like Jeff. He's saying, what is your character? What is your name? What is your essence? Who are you really? And after this whole thing with the angel, the author gets very explicit, being led by God's Spirit. And she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. Who spoke to her? The name of the Lord. I thought it was the angel of the Lord meeting with her. She called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees. And so now the angel of the Lord is clearly being identified as deity. And so you have this implicit where you have a promise, not the Abrahamic promise, but one like it being given to her descendants. And you have explicit that the angel of the Lord is the Lord who spoke to her, is the God who sees me.
So what are some of the implications of that, Jeff? Because you mentioned now God has entered into his creation. So some of the things that we could say is, well, so now God is personal. He's there.
Yeah.
So some of those things, like we have a God who, because some of, so again, getting down to our apologetics issues, we do have a God who is interactive. We do have a God who wants to, who cares enough, right, to dethrone and come down to our level, right? We have a God who is willing to hear us out, a relational God, because you always hear at times, there's two gods, there's the God of the Old Testament, and then there's the God who's gracious and loving in the New Testament. And the God of the Old Testament is basically a fire breathing dragon, so is that fair to say, Jeff, that, it sort of allows us to some of these things that we can see or glean from these types of passages?
Yes, and I think there's something even more important here. The theophanies, the angel of the Lord, is foundational to the incarnation. I get this all the time from other Jewish folks. I've had the chance, to be honest. My dad's 91, and I've had the chance to share with him recently, and his objections very much are around the incarnation and the Trinity. And the fallback position is, you mean God had physical relations with Mary and had a son? I mean, this is like very typical stuff. And my response is, Dad, let me explain. I believe the God who was the angel of the Lord, I believe the God who took the form of an angel can take the form of a man. See, this is God's way of doing, I forgot what they're called, previews. When you go to a movie and they show like the previews of coming movies, these are the previews of the incarnation.
or the teaser trailers, or
Yep. This is prep for the incarnation, so that when Jesus comes on the scene to a bunch of Jewish guys who were fishermen, they're ready to say, "Oh, I get it. I don't have a problem with this."
Man, that's so good. Anything else to either add or take away from this this particular passage?
Her comment about God sees isn't simply that, hi, God's got 20/20 and doesn't need glasses. God is aware of the human situation. God is aware of my situation. I ran away. I was dying in the desert. My kid's going to die. I don't want to watch this. She walks a few steps, and then God enters into it, surprises her, and says, yeah. And she says, yeah, this is the God who sees. This is a God who truly knows what I'm going through, what human beings go through.
Yeah. And therefore, in our depths of sorrow, or our depths of, so again, sort of referencing back to actually a relational God, not just this higher supreme being that doesn't care about things, or doesn't, just basically lets us off to our own devices, that he is relational. He does view, he does see these things, like you said, which is a huge encouragement, to any of us, because we all are, we all have certain things that we're going through, things that, so again, back to application, looking at these things, here's an apologetic to show, that God is interactive. He's not just off and afar and not caring. He cared enough, like Jeff said, to come into this situation of this maiden, and basically intervene. So amazing stuff. Next verse I wanted to look at is another angel of the Lord verse, is in 22 of Genesis, Genesis 22. And again, another great story of Abraham. Abram was in the passage before. Now he's Abraham. And most of us are familiar with not the burning bush, excuse me, the sacrifice of the son. And let's see, where should we start with this?
If you're looking for the angel of the Lord, 10, 11, maybe
10, 11. Okay, so, and then there we go. And then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here I am. And he said, do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for I know that you fear God, seeing that you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, him was a ram caught in the thicket in his horns, excuse me. So here again is this angel of the Lord. And so why is this passage important, or why? Go ahead.
This is like a main scene in the play. I mean, if you don't get this scene, then the mystery, the whodunit at the end is going to make no sense. I mean, this is like pivotal. We call this the Akedah in Hebrew, or the binding of Isaac. This thing is read every morning as part of the prayer book. I mean, this is like, like a central passage. First of all, the switch in pronouns in Hebrew is not accidental. Now I know you fear God, since you've not withheld your only son from me. So the angel of the Lord is claiming to be God. 2, the transition here is now you see the lamb. See, this is really key, because now the lamb comes in and substitutionary atonement comes in. Because Isaac owed, really Abraham owed Isaac, Abraham owed, God Isaac's life. At the minute he tells Abraham to do this, really Isaac's life is forfeit. This is like even key sometimes with Muslims. You got to be careful about, bringing which son of Abraham, because the Quran doesn't say, but we'll just let that rest aside. Here's the key. The ram substitutes. Here's the lamb. So you have the angel of the Lord in this passage, but now you have the motif of the lamb. Okay. And the entire survival of the Jewish people is through Isaac. If Isaac dies here and is not raised from the dead and does not continue in some way, there is no Jewish people. The survival of all those who will come from Isaac is contained in Isaac. So this is a critical passage. And now you have the lamb. And what's interesting is even the rabbis make the connection between the Passover lamb, this ram, and then you can go to Isaiah 53 and say the lamb is a man. I have a whole gospel presentation that does this, that goes from here to Exodus 12 to Isaiah 53. And then if you really want a killer way to bring the New Testament in, you go to John, behold the lamb who takes away the sin of the world. And these verses are playing in the Jewish head when he says this. The lamb, Genesis 22. The lamb, Exodus 12. The lamb, Isaiah 53. Oh, look, there's the lamb. He's coming right now.
Man. See, this some of this is nuance that I would not be able to communicate to anyone. That this is the value of your perspective. So, that is so good. So I didn't have the Exodus 12 passage, but again, I had the Exodus 3, where the angel of the Lord came in again. Let's see. So let's go there real quick.
Yep.
And let's see, Exodus 3. All right. And then most of us are, I got ahead of myself the last passage, but most of us are familiar with this passage, the burning bush passage with Moses. And let's see, we saw in verse 4, when we saw that he turned aside to see God calling to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses, here I am. And then let's see, where is here it is, verse 2. I'm sorry, got ahead of myself. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flame of fire out of the midst of the burning bush. But then I got ahead of myself and read in verse 4, then it says that the Lord saw that he turned aside to see God call him out of the bush. So again, another sighting of this angel of the Lord and being God. Now, Jeff, why is this so important? This sighting of the angel of the Lord with Moses.
Well, again, you have the deity there. You have God being the Lord, being the angel of the Lord, and appearing. And then this burning later becomes key to what's called the Shekhinah. A story someone told to us in Chosen People as he was dealing with an Orthodox Jew. And he started relaying these stories, and the Orthodox Jews said, so what you're saying is that Jesus is the walking Shekinah glory of God. And the missionary said, yeah, you understand now. You are not far from the kingdom. Okay. This is just, again, this is foundational. The angel of the Lord's there. You've got that glory of God manifested. That then becomes the pillar of fire, which becomes key. And it's all around redemption, by the way. Moses is being given his marching orders. Really, this is the beginning of, essentially God beginning to act on his intent as far as the Exodus.
Excellent. Oh, let's see. These things, and I noticed and I apologize. I noticed the inconsistency in my notes here that I sent over to you, because we sort of, we're talking about these sort of snapshot images, and then I the next one I had was in 2 Samuel, and when your days are over and you rest with your ancestors, I'll raise up your offspring. Almost going back to the Shawnee Miller, blessings to you, sis. Thank you for showing up, sister. Blessings to you. One of our good sisters out there putting in work, her and all the bodega ladies from the Bodega Bible Talk. So go check it out. BK Apologist channel. Always good every Friday. I've been part of that panel as well, looking at current events from a Christian perspective. So yeah, go and check it out every Friday night. And then don't forget Saturday Night Live with SOC, Servant of Christ Ministries. Every Saturday, both of those are 10 p.m. Eastern, both nights. So Friday and Saturday, Friday Bodega Night, and Saturday Night Lives with SOC. And sorry for that commercial interruption. So back to the study. But so again, this sort of shows my ignorance, Jeff, of this, because I thought of, I never thought of sort of breaking it up like you mentioned in the beginning, that there's a certain imagery and then there's this other these other ideas of Christ throughout the Old Testament, and we have to be careful that we're looking at them individually, or at least being able to recognize which is which. So I do, like I said, and I admit, I don't know everything, and I'm a student and trying to just do my best to communicate the gospel, and we're always learning, and praise God that we're always learning. So now this passage here in 2 Samuel, when your days were filled, verse 12, when your days were fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish a throne for his kingdom forever.
Okay, so now we have the Davidic promise. Now, watch what happens when we juxtaposition this. The word is seed. Okay? So Abraham's promised a seed. Eve was promised a seed. Now the seed is promised through David. So you have this motif of the seed that's going on here. And it starts with Eve getting a promise that there'd be a seed that would overcome what was done. Then you go to Abraham, and it's his seed In your seed, all the nations of the earth. Actually, the Hebrew is family, mishpucha. In your seed, all the families of the earth will be blessed. And then you go to David, and I will set your seed up after you, who will come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. So now you have this following through of the seed. And now the seed is connected with David. And that's what I mean about motif. The same idea or word seed is used linguistically in all three places. And it's not so much, it's just the richness of the Old Testament that you're dealing with. Because the writers, even though they're separated by hundreds of years, are running these same motifs and promises. That's why I know this isn't a work of man. I mean, look at the intricacies of the plot of this story. This is more intricate than anything Conan Doyle could do or any human writer could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've also sort of heard an argument as well of, the authenticity, or that this isn't just something that someone could have made up, because there's a ton of, or what would be a ton of self-defamation by the nation of Israel, or as they went through the entire, all their failings are in there as well as their triumphs, and there's this repetitive cycle of falling and then raising back up and falling, and God being gracious with them and God being long-suffering with them. So most people, or most stories, will have this people group, or the subject of the story just be this triumphal, or this triumphant character, but there are some very, 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 very massive shortcomings by this people group, and all through the Old Testament, and then even more so with the denial of Christ. So yeah, I mean, that is a fantastic point. Anything else on this passage, Jeff?
The thing you need to understand here, is, and it plays into the virgin birth. You've got to have a human seed. You've got to have a human son. Whoever this deliverer is, he has to be authentically human. So whatever a human being is, he carries that nature. He is truly human.
Amen. So leading right to that point, Isaiah 7, 14, and therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign, and behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel.
This is a really hard prophecy to deal with. I'll give you a clue. I'll be dealing with it this Wednesday. It's the most attacked prophecy among Jewish polemicists. And what often happens is we try to do a slam dunk, and we run to the word Alma. And we try to do the slam dunk that Alma could only mean a virgin. Yes, this says what you think it says, but there are reasons it says what it says. And it's not because of the slam dunk. It's because of how it fits into the story and other places where Alma is used. Because Hebrew didn't have a term for virgin. It had a term for a woman old enough to conceive. Okay? Dr. Michael Brown, in his lovely 4-volume set on answering Jewish objections, points out that it was generally assumed that a woman who was of decent background, a good young lady, if she was not married, would not have had relations. Okay? That was the assumption of the culture. That a young woman would keep herself virginal until marriage. So they didn't have a special word for that. There was, are you a child? Are you past puberty, in which case you can conceive, bear children, sire? Are you necessarily an older woman? So, I mean, it's not as simple as that. And so does Alma mean virgin here? Yes, but not simply because it's Alma, but because it's in Alma in a certain context that's being used here. So that's kind of what Wednesday's going to kind of touch on, because the big argument is, well, Alma doesn't mean virgin. Well, actually, in this context, and given the nature of Messiah, it has to mean virgin.
Man, that's excellent, man. I love it. We are getting to almost an hour, and I know that some of our moderators might need to jump off, because I believe Vocab, I don't know if it's a live show or if he has a premiere, but that's coming at the top of the hour, so they might have to jump off. But also, I want to be sensitive of your time, Jeff. I know you've been online for a few hours now. Jeff is doing the Iron Man thing today. He hosted a Bible study earlier, which I caught the tail end, and then he took a short. I don't know if he took a power nap or did a couple push-ups to get pumped up, and then came on with us. So yeah, I don't want to hold you up too long there, Jeff.
I appreciate that. I drank the breakfast of champions. I had a cup of coffee. If I don't know whether you allow Q&A where you want to go from here.
Yeah, let's do that. Nate had a question earlier. Let me try to find it here in the chat. It had to do with Melchizedek. Yeah, he said, was Melchizedek the pre-incarnate Christ?
Yeah, and then someone responded, he's a type. I like that typology approach, because Melchizedek is human. Now, I know it says he's without parents, but the technical meaning of that phrase is without genealogy. And we don't have a genealogy for Melchizedek. And so what I would say is that the second person of the Godhead becomes incarnate when Jesus becomes incarnate. If Melchizedek was indeed the pre-incarnate Christ, he would no longer be pre-incarnate. So I like the type approach better than I like the idea that he was the pre-incarnate Christ. That's, I always say to people, I'll take you for the ride. You can decide if you like the destination. So, that's my thinking.
Excellent. Yeah, I like that interpretation as well. I've heard cases for both, but yeah, I like that. It's it's more of a typology rather than the actual pre-incarnate or another angel of the Lord type thing. Let me see. I'm not seeing any more questions, guys. If you have any questions, but again, I know that there's a time crunch. Some of you might need to run. But Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about where we can find you? I know we put you're associated with a couple things, but I know we put some of the information in the chat. So yeah, tell us where we can find you. And
well, Nate to flash the YouTube channel and said subscribe. So I'm going to say I amen that. I love that idea, and it's up there again. You can also find a Facebook page called Zion's Banner, and so that's my Facebook presence. And those are the two places. We also have a website. I try to get stuff from the YouTube to the website and try to blog. Writing is not my strength, and so the blogs come a lot harder than this sort of thing does for me. but that's zionsbanner.org, www.zionsbanner.org. And so I'm trying to get better at writing in, getting material up there.
Okay, yeah, we did have one question. If Christ is the priest in the order of Melchizedek, then he was not Melchizedek as his service ceased. Or I don't know if that's a statement or a question.
Well, I think Air Church is raising a good point. Air Church is, by the way, shout out to Air Church, that the point that Melchizedek may not have had mother or father recorded, but he didn't live forever from what we know. And so Melchizedek would have died, but Psalm 110 verse 4 says, thou art of the order, that Messiah will be of the order of Melchizedek forever. That's where Hebrews goes with it, that he's a high priest who does not cease serving by virtue of death. He continues to live forever. And so I think that's what Air Church is saying, is that the typology is a better shot to avoid the mortality of Melchizedek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does fit that type beautifully, Air Church says. So shout out to you, Air Church. Nice work. Well, Jeff, I think we will call it from here. I know an hour just flies by, I'll tell you. Especially when, I get to work with some fantastic minds like you. And so I appreciate you coming on, Jeff. I appreciate your time with us, and I appreciate your doing the Iron Man thing, going from stream to stream. I mean, that's not for the faint of heart.
And we'll need to have you on my show. I really appreciated the time. I've appreciated our talking, and that would be fun too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, anytime. Just let me know. I know that you are. What times are you on, Jeff? Let us know what times you're on.
Okay. I do Wednesday, which is more apologetics, and then I've been doing a Matthew through Jewish eyes on Thursday.
Okay. So Tuesdays, and now is there a set time that you're coming on?
Yeah, because I'm in Arizona, and I can reevaluate this someday. I have been doing the 7 o'clock thing. I know that gets a little late for folks, but that sort of worked best with the high speed here. And so, right now it's 7 o'clock Arizona time. I know that makes it a little late East Coast.
Yeah.
It'll get better in the fall though, because then we'll be with mountain time.
Okay. Yeah, I always found that weird. Arizona sort of has their own time system. It's kind of odd. Because right now,
I was going to tell you a joke you'd appreciate. Out in Arizona, the story's told of an Indian chief who said only a white man could cut the first an inch off the top of a blanket, sew it to the bottom of the blanket, and say the blanket was longer.
Yeah. that is some native logic, I'll tell you what. So yeah, Steve said good job as always, Jeff, and yes, I echo that for sure. And yes, we need a part 2, and maybe we can get a little more focused next time. So yeah, so with that, yeah, Air Church like that one, Jeff. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys hanging in there with us and with all my scatterbrainness. But yeah, so we will see you next week. I will be on with BK Apologist on his channel during Drops of Hope's normal time. I'll be on at 4 o'clock Eastern with BK Apologist talking about the Sundance of Christ, and then looking at the Native American context. Appreciate you, SOC, my brother. And then hopefully one of these days I can get on with SOC with his Bible study on Saturday nights. So don't forget to check that out. And also SOC drops new videos every Friday. usually in the morning, so there's not a set time, but just look out for SOC's. His videos drop every Friday, so go and check those out. So yeah, so I have that, and then coming up the week after that, so the weekend of the 30th, I will have part 2 of on the 30th, part 2 with Gen Z apologetics. And then also I will have later on in September, we have Sister Michelle Turner coming onto the channel. I need to finalize the date. I think we sort of have it. It's sort of firm at this moment, but I just need to make sure everything is nailed down completely, and then get the thumbnail out and all that kind of stuff. So I have some work to do, but I think it's tentatively set for the weekend of the 13th. Hopefully, I'm not lying. Sister Michelle and I will be going in on the the biblical role of women, and not have the misogynistic. The 14th, I believe it's the 13th, sister. I was just looking at the calendar. So yeah, the 13th of September. The 14th is a Monday. Yeah. So yeah. So we are right in. So yeah, we're gonna go through that, and Sister Michelle, girl is she's putting in work, yeah, for sure. SOC. She is making her rounds. Yeah, she did a fantastic job with Isaiah Robertson with her interview with him. So yeah, so come and check that out. So any final words, Jeff?
No, it's been great to be on. I see some familiar names. I see some non-familiar names. Boy, that interesting thing on the role of women avoiding misogyny is quite a challenge there.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, just trying to get the biblical perspective, because there's been this narrative throughout Christianity of men leading the church, and women just need to be quiet. But is that really what the Bible says? So we need to look at we're trying to go in on the whole thing. So yeah, she's definitely well balanced. Appreciate her perspective, and so just trying to be balanced, not trying to go too far and all that. Try to have the proper perspective when we're exegeting scripture. So yeah. All right. Well, this is MrPhilFox of Drops of Hope Ministries, and Jeff Kran of Banner of Truth.
Well,
did I get it right?
It's still Zion's Banner, but that's okay. You're coming up with better names than I came up with. I should have checked with you.
Zion's Banner. If I can get that right, I'd win an award. Zion's Banner. There we go. I'm sorry about that, brother. But all right, we are out, and thank you for joining. Blessings.